Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Before we start, I want you to grab a cup of coffee or tea, get comfortable because today's video is going to be a long one. And it needs to be. Today I want to tell you about someone extraordinary, my mom. But to understand her strength, her resilience, and the woman she became, I need to take you back to the very beginning of her story. A story that starts with unimaginable loss, but becomes one of the most beautiful examples of love, sacrifice, and heroism I've ever known. This isn't just about my mom. It's about my grandfather. It's about what it means to love someone so much that you reshape your entire world for them. It's about the quiet heroes who never ask for recognition but deserve it more than anyone. My mom lost her mother when she was just a baby. She was barely a year old, too young to remember, too young to understand, too young to say goodbye. I don't know all the details of how it happened. Some family stories are too painful to be told and retold. But I know this. One day there was a mother holding her baby girl, probably singing lullabies and counting tiny fingers and toes. And then, suddenly she was gone. Just like that, my mom's world changed forever, except she was too young to even know it. Think about that for a moment. Before she could form memories, before she could say, "Mama," before she could even understand the concept of loss, the person who gave her life was taken away. She would never know her mother's voice. Never know if she had her mother's eyes or her laugh. Never feel her arms around her during a nightmare. Never get advice about boys or help picking out a dress for prom, or guidance on her wedding day. Never introduce her own children to their grandmother. That connection that so many of us take for granted, that fundamental bond between mother and child, was severed before it could even begin. And the cruelest part? She would grow up surrounded by reminders of what she'd lost. Every Mother's Day. Every school event where other kids' moms showed up. Every time someone asked about her family. Every time she saw a mother and daughter laughing together in the grocery store. Can you imagine carrying that weight? Not just the loss itself, but growing up knowing there's a hole in your story that can never be filled? A question mark where there should be answers? He was a young man who had just lost his wife, the love of his life, his partner, the mother of his child. He was drowning in his own grief, trying to process an unthinkable loss. But he couldn't fall apart, because there was a baby girl who needed him. A little girl who had just lost her mother and couldn't lose her father too. He had choices to make. Impossible choices. This was decades ago, remember? In that era, men weren't expected to be caregivers. Society had very clear roles. Fathers provided, mothers nurtured. Fathers went to work, mothers stayed home. Fathers were strong and stoic, mothers were soft and emotional. He could have remarried quickly. Many men did, looking for someone to fill that maternal role. He could have sent my mom to live with relatives while he got his life together. He could have leaned heavily on his own mother or sisters to raise his daughter. Those would have been the easier paths. The expected paths. No one would have blamed him. But my grandfather looked at his baby girl and made a different choice. He decided that no one else would raise his daughter. He would be both mother and father. He would learn whatever he needed to learn, do whatever he needed to do, become whoever he needed to become. He didn't make this choice because he was trying to be a hero. He made it because he was a father, and that's what fathers do. They show up. No matter what. But here's the thing, deciding to do it and actually doing it are two very different things. My grandfather had to learn to be a mother. And I don't mean that in some abstract way. I mean literally, practically, daily, he had to learn skills that no one had ever taught him. He learned to braid hair. Can you picture that? This working man with rough, calloused hands, sitting with a hairbrush and tiny elastics, trying to figure out how to make his little girl look pretty for school. I'm sure the first attempts were disasters. I'm sure my mom went to school with lopsided pigtails and messy braids. But he kept trying until he got it right. He learned about clothes, what girls wore, what matched, what was appropriate for different occasions. He learned about nutrition and cooking meals that a growing child would actually eat. He learned to recognize when she was coming down with something, how to take a temperature, when to call the doctor. He sat up through fevers and nightmares. He was there for every scraped knee, every bad dream, every monster under the bed. He learned about feelings, how to recognize when his daughter was sad versus angry versus scared. How to comfort her when she cried. How to validate her emotions instead of dismissing them. How to create a safe space where she could be vulnerable. This was revolutionary for a man of his generation. Men weren't supposed to be in touch with feelings. They weren't supposed to talk about emotions or create safe spaces. But my grandfather did it anyway because his daughter needed it. He packed school lunches every single day. He attended every parent-teacher conference, every school play, every recital. He was the only dad in a sea of moms at PTA meetings, and he didn't care. He showed up. He learned about girl things, about puberty and periods and bras and all the awkward conversations that mothers usually handle. I cannot imagine how uncomfortable some of those conversations must have been for him. But he had them anyway because his daughter needed him to. He learned to celebrate the little things. He made birthdays special. He created traditions and memories. He took photos. He kept baby books. He did all the things that people said fathers weren't equipped to do. But it wasn't just about learning tasks. It was about learning a different way of being. My grandfather learned to be soft when the world told him to be hard. He learned that vulnerability is strength. He learned that asking for help is courage. He learned that being a man doesn't mean being emotionless. It means being present, being loving, being there. And he did all of this while also being a father in the traditional sense. He still worked full-time, often long hours, to provide for his daughter. He still taught her about responsibility and discipline. He still showed her what a strong work ethic looked like. He still fixed things around the house and mowed the lawn and did all the dad things. He was both. He was everything. But let's talk about what this cost him. Because heroism always has a price. My grandfather gave up his own chance at romantic love. He could have remarried, could have found companionship, could have had a partner to share the burden. But he chose not to, at least not while my mom was young. His daughter needed stability, needed to be his priority, and he wasn't going to risk introducing complications into her already complicated life. Think about how lonely that must have been. Going to bed alone every night in the house he'd shared with his wife. Having no one to talk to about his day, his fears, his struggles. Carrying all of that weight by himself. He gave up his social life. While his friends were going out, dating, enjoying their 20s and 30s, he was home giving baths and reading bedtime stories. He missed parties, skipped trips, turned down opportunities, all because he had a little girl at home who needed him. He gave up career advancement, probably. It's hard to work late or travel for business when you're a single parent. He might have been passed over for promotions. He might have had to turn down jobs that would have paid more but required longer hours. He gave up sleep, so much sleep. Between night feedings when my mom was a baby, to staying up worried when she was a teenager, to working late to make ends meet. The exhaustion must have been overwhelming at times. He gave up the luxury of falling apart. Every parent needs to fall apart sometimes, to cry, to rage at the unfairness of life, to just stop being strong for 5 minutes. But my grandfather couldn't afford that luxury often. He had to be the strong one, the stable one, the one who held it together. And here's what kills me, he never complained. Never made my mom feel like a burden. Never threw his sacrifices in her face during an argument. Never said, "After everything I've given up for you." He just loved her. Quietly, constantly, completely. That's real heroism. Not the flashy kind that gets movie deals. The everyday kind. The kind that gets up when it's tired. The kind that keeps going when it wants to quit. The kind that no one sees but changes everything. Don't get me wrong, this wasn't a perfect fairy tale. My grandfather wasn't a perfect parent, because perfect parents don't exist. I'm sure there were days he burned dinner. Days he forgot to sign a permission slip. Days he lost his patience. Days he felt completely overwhelmed and out of his depth. I'm sure there were times my mom needed something he just couldn't give her. Times she felt the absence of her mother acutely and he didn't know how to fill that void. There were probably moments of frustration between them. Typical parent-child conflicts, but amplified by the pressure they were both under. My mom probably tested boundaries the way all kids do. She probably slammed doors and rolled her eyes and said, "You don't understand me," things that all teenagers say, but that probably hit differently when there was no mother to soften the blow or offer a different perspective. And I'm sure my grandfather second-guessed himself constantly. Did I handle that right? Am I doing enough? Is she okay? What would her mother have done? But here's the thing about my grandfather, he kept showing up. When he made mistakes, he apologized. When he didn't know something, he figured it out. When my mom pushed him away, he didn't leave, he gave her space but stayed close enough to catch her if she fell. He celebrated her victories like they were his own. Her first A on a test. Her first school award. Her graduation. Every milestone was a triumph they shared. He taught her to be independent. He didn't smother her or keep her too close out of fear. He taught her to ride a bike even though he was terrified she'd get hurt. He let her go to sleepovers even though he worried all night. He taught her to drive even though it scared him to death. He prepared her for the world, even though the world had already hurt them both so much. And somewhere in all of that daily showing up, all those small moments of love and care and dedication, my mom learned what it meant to be strong. Not strong like nothing hurts you. Strong like you keep going even when it does. My mom grew up without a mother, yes. But she grew up with something equally powerful, She grew up knowing what unconditional love looks like in action. She learned that love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice you make every single day. It's showing up even when it's hard. It's putting someone else's needs before your own. It's staying when leaving would be easier. She learned that family isn't just about biology or tradition. It's about commitment. It's about who shows up for you, who stands by you, who chooses you every single day. She learned resilience. Not the kind that comes from never falling down, but the kind that comes from getting back up every single time. She faced loss before she could even comprehend it, and she survived. That gave her a strength that not everyone has. She learned compassion. Because she knew what it felt like to hurt, she learned to be gentle with others who were hurting. Because she knew what absence felt like, she learned to be present. Because she knew what it meant to be chosen and prioritized, she learned to do that for others. My grandfather didn't just raise a daughter. He raised a woman who would become an incredible mother herself. When I watch my mom's parents, I see my grandfather in everything she does. I see his patience. I see his dedication. I see his unconditional love. She shows up for her kids the way he showed up for her. Completely. Wholly. Without reservation. She's both soft and strong, just like he taught her to be. She's vulnerable enough to cry but tough enough to keep going. She's gentle enough to comfort but firm enough to discipline. She creates safe spaces for her children to feel their feelings, to be themselves, to be imperfect, because her father created that space for her. She celebrates the small victories and turns ordinary days into memories, because her father taught her that's what love looks like in practice. And here's something beautiful. Even though my mom never knew her own mother, she somehow knows how to mother. Because my grandfather taught her. Because love taught her. Because showing up every day taught her. I think about the conversations my mom never got to have with her mother. The first time she got her heart broken, she couldn't call her mom crying, couldn't hear that maternal reassurance that everything would be okay. When she was planning her wedding, she couldn't ask her mom about her own wedding day, couldn't get advice on handling in-laws, couldn't share that special mother-daughter moment. When she was pregnant with her first child, she couldn't ask her mom about pregnancy symptoms, couldn't hear stories about her own birth, couldn't get that wisdom that only a mother can pass down. The first time she held her own baby, she couldn't share that moment with her mother, couldn't see her mother become a grandmother, couldn't watch the circle complete itself. All those milestones, all those moments when a woman typically turns to her mother, my mom had to navigate them without that guidance. But you know what she did have? She had her father. My grandfather was there for all of it. Every milestone, every moment, every time she needed someone, he was there. He walked her down the aisle, and in that moment he was filling two roles. Father and mother. The one who raised her and the one who should have been there too. He was at the hospital when she had her babies. He held his grandchildren with hands that had changed their mother's diapers, braided her hair, wiped her tears. He couldn't replace her mother. He never tried to. But he made sure she never felt alone. My grandfather's story teaches us something profound about love, about family, about what it means to be a parent. It teaches us that family isn't about fitting into neat boxes or traditional roles. It's about showing up. It's about love in action. It's about doing whatever needs to be done, learning whatever needs to be learned, becoming whoever needs to be there. It teaches us that one person's complete love is worth more than two people's half-hearted effort. Quality over quantity. Presence over tradition. It teaches us that masculinity and caregiving aren't opposites. That being a strong man doesn't mean being emotionless or distant. That the strongest thing a man can do is be gentle, be present, be vulnerable, be there. It teaches us that children are resilient, but they need at least one person who is all in. One person who will move heaven and earth for them. One person who makes them feel chosen, valued, loved beyond measure. It teaches us that sacrifice and love are inseparable. Real love costs something. It requires giving up parts of yourself, your comfort, your convenience. And it's worth it. Every time. It teaches us that the truest heroes are the ones who show up every day in small ways. Not the ones making grand gestures or seeking recognition. The ones who pack lunches and attend recitals and stay up late worrying and get up early to do it all again. My grandfather never won any awards for being a single dad. There were no news articles written about him. He never went viral on social media. He just quietly, steadily, completely loved his daughter and raised her right. And isn't that what heroism really looks like? Today, decades later, the impact of my grandfather's love continues to ripple outward. It lives on in my mom, in her strength, her compassion, her dedication to her own children. It lives on in me and my siblings, because the love my grandfather showed my mom, she passed down to us. We are who we are because of a grandfather we may have never fully appreciated, who made choices before we were born that shaped our entire lives. It will live on in my children someday and their children after that. Because that's how love works. It doesn't die. It multiplies. It echoes through generations. My grandfather taught us that love can fill any void. That family is what you make it. That showing up matters more than anything else. He taught us that when life takes away, you don't have to let it defeat you. You can choose to love bigger, fight harder, show up stronger. He taught us that loss doesn't have to define you, it can refine you. It can make you more compassionate, more present, more grateful for the people you still have. And he taught us the most important lesson of all. You don't have to be perfect to be enough. You don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know what you're doing. You just have to love fiercely and show up consistently, and somehow that's enough. More than enough. So this video is for my mom. Mom, you lost something before you could even understand what it meant. You grew up with an absence that should have broken you. But it didn't. Because you had a father who refused to let it. You are strong because he taught you strength. You are loving because he showed you love. You are whole because he never let you feel broken. I see you, Mom. I see the battles you fought that no one knew about. I see the questions that still hurt even after all these years. I see the mother-shaped hole that never quite heals. And I see how you turned all of that pain into purpose, all of that loss into love. And this video is for my grandfather. Grandpa, you are a hero. Not the kind that gets statues or medals. The everyday kind. The kind that changed diapers and braided hair and stayed up worried and showed up tired and loved completely. You could have done the minimum. You could have just provided the basics and called it enough. But you gave everything. You reshaped your entire life around a little girl who needed you. You learned to be things you never imagined you'd have to be. You sacrificed in ways no one will ever fully know. And because of you, your daughter survived. More than survived, she thrived. And because of her, your grandchildren are here. And because of all of us, your love continues. You proved that sometimes one person's love really is enough. That a father can be a mother too. That showing up is everything. That quiet heroism is the most powerful kind. Thank you. For everything. For showing us what love looks like in action. For teaching us that family isn't about perfection, it's about presence. For proving that the most important thing we can give each other is simply being there. If you've lost someone, if you've been raised by a single parent, if you're that parent doing it alone right now, I see you. Your story matters. Your strength is real. Your love is enough. And the sacrifices you're making right now will echo through generations. To everyone watching, the heroes in your life might not be the ones making headlines. They might be the ones quietly making breakfast, driving you to practice, staying up to help with homework, working 2 jobs to keep the lights on, showing up tired but showing up anyway. Tell them. Thank them. Let them know they're not invisible. And if you're that person, if you're the one showing up every day and wondering if it's enough, it is. You are enough. What you're doing matters more than you know. Thank you for watching this long video. Thank you for caring about my family's story. If this touched you, please share it. Leave a comment about the quiet heroes in your life. I want to hear every single story. And remember, love isn't about replacing what's lost. It's about filling the present with everything you have.